Hello there, Ramblers, and welcome back to Reese Rambles, my weekly podcast all about the comings and goings, movings and shakings, and all the rest of it in the worlds of vintage and retro computing, gaming, and technology. I hope you're all doing well, and indeed also a big welcome to yet another weekend. And I suppose I should start this off by addressing the elephant in the room, and that is the lack of a release on my main channel this week. Of course, I never actually committed to doing weekly releases forever. I know it would have to come to an end at some point, and it has indeed, after 10 weeks, a 10-week weekly streak of video releases on a Friday morning. This week there wasn't one, and there was a very good reason for that, because as I talked about in last week's Ramble, I was down in Cambridge last weekend at an event. So I went down on the Friday. We had a lovely time all getting drunk in a pub on the Friday night. And then all day Saturday, we were exhibiting our weird and wonderful machines at the Centre for Computing History. And the event was absolutely fantastic. It went down really well. I got loads of video footage there on my phone. In fact, I actually bought a better phone so I could record these events and things because I must admit, I had a Pixel 6a, which is a fantastic phone. But there were some bits and pieces I'd recorded on that previously that I must admit I wasn't 100% happy with, and I thought I may as well invest in a phone with a much better camera if I'm doing this YouTubing thing, and it's going to be part of that whole setup. So I took that down and got lots of footage of all the various exhibits, and of course around the museum itself. My very first time at the Centre for Computing History, a place that I've been wanting to visit for a very long time now. And I was invited to exhibit by Tony Jewell, also known as Here Be Dragons on the socials, and that's a name you might be familiar with from my videos as well, because he's been helping me out with the Seffucom 21. That's an English language teaching computer from Japan. And I was actually invited specifically to exhibit that machine alongside some other YouTubers, some loosely affiliated British retro tech YouTubers known as the Big Red Arrow Club. And if you're a long-term viewer or listener, you'll probably have heard that name before. But a bit of a shout-out to them. So this is our table, and this is my Seffucom closest to the camera if you're watching this on YouTube. So on the left-hand side, that's mine, and it was set up all day on the Saturday. Very pleased to report that it was all running great. I ran through the demo quite a few times with quite a few people who were very interested to see it, talked them through the hardware and stuff as well. And the cool thing is that Rob Smith, who you may also be familiar with, who made that Infernal Disco machine, which was featured in my Kickstart video earlier this year. He was actually set up on the same desk right next to me after these machines were cleared out. And you will see that in the video when I eventually get that finished, hopefully this weekend. And he made these absolutely wonderful 3D printed name badges for everyone in the shape of floppy disks, which had QR codes on, which is really, really useful because I didn't take any kind of signage or anything like that. So I had one of those propped up on top of the Seffucom over the weekend, and had plenty of people scan that and check out the channel and see the story behind that machine as well. So that was very cool. And of course, the mechanism, that whole slideshow mechanism built into the machine, isn't working still. I do still need to get that working. But that's why there was no video this week, because I was down there. I ended up having to do some actual work on the Sunday, some actual day job work, and that has continued throughout this week. So this is actually the first time I've been back at the studio since last weekend. This is Friday the 15th of November. I'm recording this, and I've only just got the Seffucom out of the boot of the car. I've been driving around with it in my boot all week, so that's how hectic it's been. So, just one more note on that. Like I say, there will be a proper video about this sooner rather than later on the channel. Just to kind of give a bit of a shout out to all of the lovely people I was there exhibiting alongside. Some faces you might recognise here. I'm not going to go through every single one of them name by name. You'll have to watch the video to find out who they are. But Rob Smith, as mentioned, his wonderful floppy disk cleaning machine, which I'm sure you're familiar with, that actually exploded, which was fantastic. And he gave me the amplifier out of that as well as a memento, because he knows how much it annoys me with its constant, never-ending disco music. And a rather weird thing from that weekend as well is this effigy that was made of me. I've just realised I've still got the big picture up. Hang on, let's switch back to the camera. There we go. It needs sticking together properly. It's held together with blue tack at the moment. This effigy of me, which was made by the wonderful Watho Snorkers, aka James, who's absolutely fantastic channel. He does like spectrum coding stuff interspersed with panto is the only way that I can describe it. where he plays all of the characters and stuff in the story in front of a green screen, and it's all edited together, and it's very, very entertaining stuff. A very talented developer as well, and I know he's also a regular viewer and comments on all of my rambles, so shout out to you as well. And he made that interesting effigy of me, and also gave me a mug, which is very cool. I do actually have one of his badges as well. It's kind of been on my set for a while. Met him a few times in the past, but yeah, so it's like I say, it needs sticking together properly, but it's for the benefit of those listening on the podcast platforms. It's made out of gold cake stands, I think they are, with like sun rays coming out of them, which are like plastic board stuff, craft board type stuff. And there's my face as well, like a 3D relief of my face. I don't even know what you call that, representation. And this, of course, is a reference to my solar videos. So the infamous story about the solar panel videos that I took down a couple of years ago. And I'm apparently still revered in some circles as some kind of sun god. So anyway, lots of interesting stories from the weekend, which I'm sure you'll hear about in that video when I get it done. Just a few more notes to take, and then I need to record the voiceover and drop everything into the timeline. But that's what I got up to last weekend, and that was the Retro Computer Festival at Cambridge. There's also going to be a very, very big brand new event, which is starting next year, which we've all been invited to again. That will be in May. And I don't think there has been any kind of big public proper announcement about that yet. So I will tell you all about that when the time comes. But if you could just be aware that there will be something happening in May next year that you might want to pop down to. It's in the Midlands this time, and it's looking like it's going to be quite a cool event. But anyway, let's get on with the news stories for this week. It's time once more for me to wax lyrical all about game preservation. Yeah, something that's very, very important to me, of course, that's very dear to my heart, and of course something that I talk about pretty much every single week in these rambles, because it really does mean that much to me. It's our shared cultural history, and the biggest entertainment industry in the world, of course, video games. So I think it is very important that that is preserved for future generations, so they can go back and not only enjoy these things, but also kind of study them and see where they came from and how the whole kind of technology evolved over the years. And of course, with hardware and operatings and systems and things relentlessly marching on, it's becoming quite an important thing. There's a lot of older stuff that is quite difficult to get up and running. Some stuff that's kind of vanished to time as well, and some very good kind of organisations and movements out there trying to make that stuff available. And of course, I do my best to shout them out every single week. So this came up on my radar. This quite a few people sent this story my way, and it's also been featured on lots of different websites because it is an absolutely fantastic initiative. So this is GOG.com, or Good Old Games, as they were originally known, since shortened to GOG.com, I guess we'll call them. And they have announced this week that they have a game preservation program, they're calling it. And there are 100 games initially in this program, all absolute classics. And essentially, I mean, if you're familiar with the way that GOG.com works anyway, or GOG.com, I don't know if I can commit to one. We'll alternate between them, shall we? The way that Good Old Games works, if you're not familiar with it, is that they package up these old, generally, in fact, I think exclusively PC games, and they're packaged up with any kind of wrappers and things like DOSBox emulators, stuff like that you need to run them on modern operating systems. So you can go onto the website, you can buy, say, I don't know, Theme Hospital or Roller Coaster Tycoon or System Shock 2 or whatever for, not much money at all, generally, like $3.99, something like that. And you get a lovely version with an installer that you can download and install on your modern day PC and run. And of course, as far as the game's concerned, there's no compatibility patches or anything like that. That's all handled for you by their installers and their wrappers and things. Really, really, really cool service, and one that I use a lot myself. And because of the way that they package the things up, of course, you also get the original. You get the original game files. So I have in the past actually bought games on GOG and then just transferred them to my vintage hardware. Because, like I say, it is just a kind of a wrapper around the original files. And what they've done is they've actually taken this one step further. And this is, like I say, the preservation program. So they've initially committed to 100 games, but it will be expanding in the future. And what they've done is basically committed to kind of long-term support on these games, keeping them updated forever, essentially. So they will always run on the very latest operating systems, and they will have all of the very latest patches and improvements, stability, performance patches, that kind of thing. bundled in with the installer, so you don't need to worry about installing any of that stuff. So it says here on the website, the GOG Preservation Program ensures classic games remain playable on modern systems even after their developers stopped supporting them. By maintaining these iconic titles, GOG helps you protect and relive the memories that shaped you, DRM-free and with dedicated tech support. And that is very important, actually. That's another a particular highlight of good old games, that their games don't include any kind of DRM. So you can download it, you have the installer, you've got the files, you can install it, wherever you want, you can back it up. And that is an absolutely fantastic aspect, unlike something like Steam. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm a big fan of Steam. I use it myself. I own hundreds and hundreds of games on there, and I fire it up quite regularly on my gaming PC. But ultimately, those kind of modern day games bought through Steam are tied to that service via some form of DRM, some form of copy protection, which GOG don't do. So there you go. But this is a really interesting page to check out. And of course, this will be linked in the usual places if you want to go and read this. But they have the stories of all of these games. So we've got Heroes of Might and Magic 3 complete. We've got Diablo, we've got Resident Evil bundle. And like I say, there's 100 of these. So we've got Roller Coaster Tycoon. I'm not going to read off every single game. We've got Worms United on there. SimCity 2000. And like I mentioned, if you look at the prices, I'm on the US page here somehow, but we look at the prices on these, $2.99, $4.99, 59 cents for some of these games. They're an absolute steal, especially with that kind of long-term support and that compatibility, wrappers and packaging and stuff around them as well. And they have some actual kind of case studies on here, some actual stories of what they've done. So if you click on these, it tells you the update history. They've added localizations to some of these games, which of course weren't included in the original versions. They've got bug fixes for intros not playing and windowed mode not working properly, improved stability, compatibility with Windows 10 and 11, and you can see the full history of all of the kind of improvements and the patches that they've applied to these old games. So I love this. This is right down my street. I think it's a fantastic initiative. I already own a few of these anyway, but I will certainly be poking around this page a lot in the future, seeing what else they come up with and buying anything else that catches my interest, because it's just a great look at this. They've got Carmageddon Max Pack. They've got Legacy of Kain, Descent, Jazz Jackrabbit, Monkey Island. These are proper sort of big name AAA games from back in the day, and like I say, it's expanding in the future as well. So I think this is an absolutely fantastic initiative. Of course, it's very early days yet. There isn't really much over and above what they would usually offer with these games. From what I can see, I think it's more kind of a commitment to the future of the long-term support of these, but they've always been good eggs in the worlds of kind of gaming and retro gaming, so I certainly don't have any reason to doubt that this will be a fantastically successful initiative, and I urge you to check out the link in the usual places, and if there's anything in there that takes your fancy, go and pick it up and give them a couple of dollars or a couple of pounds or euros or whatever, and help to fund the future of game preservation. So while we are on the subject of fantastic little collections of games that you can buy to while away the upcoming winter months, I thought I'd give a shout out to another project which I'm very much on board with and very pleased to be supporting. And this was actually a submission that came to me via email, so thank you ever so much to Alan for sending this over. This is a collection of ZX Spectrum homebrew games from a very well-known homebrew publisher. And they are publishing these as well as a load of other homebrew titles on the ZX Spectrum to support a very important charity, one that's quite dear to my heart and one that I'm, like I say, very pleased to be on board with. So without further ado, let's have a look at this. This is the fantastically named Moustachio's Midnight Moonshine collection for the ZX Spectrum. And what I will do while you peruse the list of games here, if you are watching this on YouTube, I will read the press release which was sent to me by Alan, so you know what this is all about. So Midnight Brew are proud to announce that our entire digital catalogue of 24 titles will be available for the rest of the year as part of Moustachio's Midnight Moonshine, a charity compilation in aid of the Movember Foundation. In addition, we have worked alongside our friends in the wider homebrew community across the globe to add another 24 titles on top. So that's 48 titles in total. And it's Name Your Price, which we'll talk a little bit about in a moment. But to create an excellent introduction to the wonderful world of modern Spectrum gaming. Many of us struggle with our mental health as we adjust to the challenges of not being as young as we once were. Sometimes it can be hard to find a purpose, and for a lot of men it is even harder to talk about it. Movember believe in open dialogue and community action, and that's why we're happy to support their efforts. We hope this compilation shows what can be possible when we work together. Not only a great compilation of games, but a group of friends with common interests sharing a common cause. So this is for the Movember Foundation, of course, very well known men's health charity, men's mental health charity. And yeah, of course, they do the No Shave November every year, which I know a lot of people out there get on board with. Unfortunately, I have a bit of a baby face, and I'm completely incapable of growing any kind of facial hair, so it's not one that I can get involved with. But we do have a wonderful list of games here. I'm not all that intimately familiar with the ZX Spectrum homebrew scene, so there are some very big names in here that I recognise. I'm not going to read out all 48 of them because it will take forever. But if you want to see the list, of course, the link will be in the usual places. And as mentioned, if you're watching this on YouTube, you've been sat staring at it for the past couple of minutes. But the link is to a coffee page. And like I say, it's how much would you like to pay? So the minimum price is £16, which I think is an absolute steal for 48 games. All really high quality, modern ZX Spectrum homebrew games. Of course, that fantastic little British system. And, of course, all of the money is going to the Movember Foundation. So, fantastic initiative here, guys. I'm very much on board with this and just wanted to do my little bit to help it along. So, there we go. That's Moustachio's Midnight Moonshine. Wonderful name, wonderful branding based on a well-known bourbon brand. And the link is in the usual places. Go check it out. And while we are on the subject of modern homebrew games on old systems, although arguably this isn't a modern game, in fact, I don't think anyone would argue that this is a modern game, but it's a modern effort, a modern porting / homebrew effort. This was sent to me by my good friend Matthias Bayes, of course, the retro Sega game developer. He's working on his own game on the Mega Drive, but I thought this was very interesting. So nothing to buy here, nothing to promote or shout out, just an interesting little thing that someone has done that I thought you would enjoy. So this is a video over on Twitter, the rapidly declining and deteriorating website formerly known as Twitter. And this is someone called GF64 who has ported Super Mario Brothers, the original Famicom and NES game, to the Sega Mega CD. So this is called Super CD Mario Brothers, which he has taken great pains to alter the spelling of, I presume to try to fly under Nintendo's radar. So probably a very smart move there, knowing what Nintendo are like. But yeah, it shows off the first level of Mario running on the Sega CD. Of course, the CD add-on for the Sega Mega Drive, or the Genesis, if you prefer. It's running really fast. It looks really smooth. It's got audio, so it's actually using that console's CD audio to play the original soundtrack. And yeah, it's Mario on the Sega CD. So, unfortunately, this isn't available to download or to buy anywhere. It's just a bit of a preview, a bit of a tech demo. But I thought it looked cool. And as you probably know, I'm a big fan of games appearing on places where they shouldn't. So, just wanted to show this one off to you. And again, links in the usual places if you want to go and watch the video. A story now about every YouTuber's worst nightmare. And this actually happened to a very close friend of mine this week and was quite traumatic, I might say. Yeah, I was there when he first discovered this and kind of saw firsthand the absolute mad panic that happened. And it's a really nice story about how the community kind of rallied around him and actually helped him out and reversed what seemed initially like an utterly catastrophic and irreversible decision. So I'm talking about Dave from the channel Rose Tinted Spectrum, otherwise known in the community as Rosie, and he's a bloody lovely chap. Covers Spectrum games and also children's TV from the 90s, oddly enough. And his channel has actually been really blowing up just lately because he's been covering British TV favourites like Games Master and Bad Influence and those kind of kids gaming TV shows from back in the day. But he got hit with a takedown, I guess is the word for it. And it was actually picked up by Time Extension, so by a proper news site. And, there were people tweeting about this. So people like Neil RMC, it made its way all the way to LGR and Jeff Geerling and some really big names. It's really nice to see them rallying around. I mean, Rosie's not a million subscriber channel or anything, but like I say, he has been growing and he has been putting a huge amount of work into it. And he had a notification from YouTube essentially saying that they'd deleted his channel and that there was no way to appeal it, or he had one chance to appeal it, which they immediately rejected. So the story is here on timeextension.com, and this has been quite the emotional roller coaster, I must say. So we've got Kim Justice here tweeting about it, Did You Know Gaming, RMC, Banjo Guy Ollie, and of course Slopes are the ones that they've picked up on and reported on. And essentially, it started off with him receiving an email basically informing him that his channel had been taken offline for spam/deceptive practices/abuse, and that he could appeal, which essentially was just a button to click on with no other kind of information or anything else. And within 10 minutes, he had a response basically telling him that his channel had been reviewed by a human, which we don't actually think happened in that 10 minutes, and that the decision was final and that he wouldn't be getting the channel back. And it was at that point that he contacted Google's support. He contacted other bigger YouTubers who have channel members, channel managers and stuff like that. And that collective effort, including the kind of collective outcry on Twitter, seems to have got his channel reinstated. So it's quite an interesting story. There's quite interesting reading. You can see all of the communication firsthand. He was very open about it, posted all of the communication that he'd had back and forth with YouTube. Lots of really supportive people in the comments here as well. And also he has picked up a load of new subscribers, which, I think is a kind of a very, what's the word? Kind of bittersweet, I guess, given the circumstances. But I guess every cloud has a silver lining, and the important thing is that he got his channel back and didn't lose 5 years worth of work and hundreds of videos and the 10,000 plus subscribers that he's managed to build up over those years. Wow, I'm really tripping over my words more than usual on this one, aren't I? So a traumatic tale with a happy ending. Rose-tinted Spectrum, coverage of Spectrum games, old PC games, and all that children's TV, like I mentioned. One that's been gaining in popularity and then that was taken down for seemingly no apparent reason. I mean, I can't think of anyone less scammy and deceptive than Dave. He's done an awful lot of work for charity and stuff. He's done some charity live streams and stuff over the years, and one of the nicest and most genuine guys that I know. So very glad that there was a positive resolution to this, and may it never happen again. But a stark reminder for those of us on YouTube that we are at the whim of someone else's platform, and to watch our backs, because you never know when you might wake up to an email like this. So, as mentioned at the beginning of this ramble, I was down at an event in Cambridge last weekend, the Retro Computer Festival, or Retro Fest. Had a fantastic time. We've already been over all of that, but why raise the subject again? Well, because I was talking to some very good friends of mine while I was down there, some fellow exhibitors of mine, and that is Addict Media, or they are Addict Media, who of course publish the Pixel Addict and Amiga Addict magazines. Now, no, they're not sponsoring me. This isn't some kind of paid thing. I don't get commission for this or anything like that. But as you will see, I have a personal connection to this, and I have a bit of a vested interest in getting this out, if not a financial one, because this is their latest project, and I have actually been involved with this. This is something I've kind of kept quiet for since they first asked me at Kickstart. I think it was when I first got talking to them about this. It was, well over a year ago. Yeah, like 2 years ago. But I'm very pleased to say that it has finally come together. And this is a magazine all about Atari history. So this is Atari Addict, and I have actually contributed 2 articles to this magazine. So if we go through the kind of the previews on the website, obviously they're not big enough so you can actually read them for free on the website, because that would be very foolish of them. But you can go through. We've got the 2600 plus. There's a thing about the links, stuff about the recreations of the Atari 400, the 400 Mini. But if we go through to the interesting bit, which is me, there is an article here all about the Atari Panther. Now, there is a big page on my website full of all of the information that I've gathered all about the Atari Panther. The page that quite infamously got pretty much the entire Wikipedia page taken down because it was completely wrong. And that's one of my kind of claims to fame. And this is the article that I wrote that was based on that research, and it is being published in this magazine. It has previously been published in a very early issue of Pixel Addict, so I should probably be upfront about that. But this is a kind of slightly reworked, rejigged version for this special Atari one-off. And there is also, if we go through here, we've got a thing here about restoring an Atari 800 XL from the wonderful Andrew Siddall. And there is a brand new article here from me all about the Atari STE. Of course, the STE being the enhanced, upgraded version of the Atari ST, which was released a little bit later on in the ST's lifetime, 1989. Or was it 88? Anyway, yeah, this was kind of my contribution. I had the STE as a kid. It's a machine that I have a very personal connection to and a lot of love for. And it's 10 things that you can do specifically with the STE over and above the standard STFM, if you like. So really pleased with how this article came together. So that is in there. It's quite a big one, quite a beefy one. I put weeks and weeks worth of work into this one. And yeah, that's kind of just scratching the surface of it. Obviously, I'm interested in my bit because I'm incredibly vain. But if we just go through here and see what else they have to offer. There is an interview with Nolan Bushnell, the founder of Atari. Should that be Bushnell? But anyway, yeah, the actual founder of Atari back in the early 70s. I was actually, it was actually kind of floated the idea of me interviewing him, which would have been an absolute scoop for me. But I didn't feel up to the task, to be honest. So I passed it on to someone a lot more capable, an actual proper journalist. I know, but got to do what's in the best interest of the magazine rather than my own ego, I think. But there's stuff here from, I mean, there's interviews and articles and things from the likes of David Crane, Gary Kitchen. I mean, there's huge names. Jez Willis from Utah Saints. There's an interview with him. There's a whole roundup of the Atari demo scene. There's stuff about the Atari 800 XL, as previously mentioned. There is there's a load of coverage of the development of some quite iconic Atari games, including Chip's Challenge, which, as you may know, started on the Atari Lynx. Frank Gaskin, the author of The Games That Weren't, who quite famously is someone that I have worked with on stuff, and he, of course, that website digs up all sorts of information on cancelled games, things like that. They published an excellent book as well previously, which I'm a big fan of. There's an interview with with Jonathan Thomas, who did the pole position and Lotus Turbo Challenge enhanced ports to the ST, and is now working on a 50 FPS racing game for the STE, which looks absolutely fantastic. Really, really incredibly talented developer. So that's going to be very interesting to see the behind the scenes with that. The story of the Atari Jaguar, story of the Lynx, and yeah, the story of the cancelled Atari Panther console from the 80s. So really, really huge stuff in here. Like I say, it's a one-off special. They did previously do Amstrad Addict, which went down incredibly well. And this is very much the same. So it's a proper printed, actual, if you're familiar with these guys' work, it is a proper high-quality magazine, as you would have got back in the day. It's £10, but this is a special one-off issue with a load of extra content and stuff, which I think is a very, very fair price for something like this. I've already ordered a couple of copies because I want to give people signed copies for Christmas. Because, as mentioned, I am quite vain and I like to see my name in print. So that is available if that is of interest to you. There's going to be a load of new, previously unseen information and interviews and stuff from some ex-Atari people. I'm really, really excited about this. I can't wait to get my hands on it, and that's why I'm promoting it here. So 355 more orders required before they can actually do the print run for this. So this isn't, it's not a Kickstarter or anything like that. It is a pre-order. It's just they need to get a certain amount of money behind them before they can actually send the run to print, because they are a very, very small independent operation. But there it is. That's Atari Addict magazine. And I've been a subscriber to Pixel Addict for a very long time now. And like I say, written some bits and pieces for them as well over the years. So great bunch of guys. And I really want to see this succeed. And for selfish reasons, I want to get my copies into my hands. So if that's something you're interested in, learning all about Atari history, that will, of course, as with everything else, be linked in the usual places. And I always say that, but I suppose I should point out that if you're watching this on YouTube, the usual places will be down below the video. Of course, there's the description. And if you are listening to this on the podcast platforms, I know Spotify, which is kind of my primary platform, do have show notes with all of the episodes, which will have the links in. And I presume the other podcast platforms pick those up. If not, just come to Reese Rambles on YouTube and find this episode and click on the link. So that's that, Atari Addict. And that brings us quite neatly around to my video of the week, my regular feature every week, all about a video that I've seen in the past week on YouTube. And I go digging through my YouTube history and go, oh yeah, that was interesting. Let's share that with everyone. So this is a video all about a project that I've been reporting on since the very early days, and I'm very, very pleased to see the first batch go out and the reception to these to have been so good. And the second batch are due to go out. In fact, I think they might be going out today. In fact, I'll have to jump on the website and see if I can grab one before this Ramble gets released. But it's looking very unlikely that they sell out instantly because it is such a great project. So this is Taki Udon's DE10 Nano clone, of course, the heart of the MiSTER FPGA project. And as mentioned previously, this has started to get into the hands of some reviewers, and the early reviews have been looking very, very positive. And one of those reviewers is Short Circuit, which is part of the Linus Media Group, of course, Linus Tech Tips. I know I'm always doing the best I can to help shout out these smaller channels. But I thought this was a really good overview of the project. So there's an unboxing showing what you get in the box as part of the pack, and also a side-by-side comparison next to the original DE10 Nano. And it also kind of, if you're not all that familiar with the MiSTER project and how it works and what it's all about, it does help to serve as quite a good introduction as well, because you know, they do actually go through and set up the MiSTER software and stuff and do a bit of a demo of how it actually works. So this is the MiSTER Pi. Still not a name I'm entirely on board with because it's got nothing to do with the Raspberry Pi, and I think it does potentially sell it short a bit. But anyway, it's gone out with that name and it hasn't affected the popularity of it, so it seems. So there we go. This is a review of the MiSTER Pi by Short Circuit, and I think it's a good 15 minutes. Very informative, packed full of information, as you might expect. And yeah, just good to see the thing in action, getting into the hands of reviewers. It also covers some differences between the clone and the original, and how that might cause potential issues for compatibility with existing hardware and stuff like that. But I do know that it has been tested with the MiSTER multi-system and does work fine as long as you've got adapter for one of the cables, I think. So that's all good. And yeah, that's Taki Udon's MiSTER clone. And having reported on this thing from the very, very early days, those very early tweets when Taki kind of first floated the idea, seeing it all the way through to production, actually getting out there, getting into people's hands, and now being reviewed by a proper big tech channel, it's just really cool to see. I love projects like this, and it is less than half the price of the original hardware as well. So a very, very useful and cool contribution to the world of MiSTER, and indeed game preservation. Again, that topic that keeps coming up. That's very important to me. So go check it out. Link in the usual places. And that's all I have for you for this week's Ramble. Of course, no update on the main channel video because there hasn't been one. I'm going to go away and work on it now. And speaking of things that I'm going to go away and work on after I finish recording this, I need to put this effigy together, as previously mentioned, this sun god thing. I just want to show this off again because it's a fantastic piece of work. But yeah, I think I'm going to probably remove all of the blue tack and get that sent back to James, my good friend and wonderful person, and probably use a hot glue gun to glue it together permanently and stick it up on the wall. And if it will act as a reminder of my wonderful solar escapades, a reminder to everyone that I am some kind of sun god, apparently. That bit's just fallen off. But also, frighten off any potential burglars as well, because it is quite frightening, isn't it? So thank you ever so much for joining me once more, and I shall see you same time, same place next week. I'm off to go and finish my main channel video, so let's get on with that. Bye!